They're saying that land is being taken from white people and they're being killed, over exaggerated. White South African farmers are murdered, but the level at which they are murdered is nowhere near the level at which blacks in South Africa are killing themselves.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
It's rare. It's very rare for a white farmer to be killed in South Africa. But as soon as it happens, it comes on the news. Rubio to go there. There's no reason for him to go to the G20. It's not going to change anything with the geopolitical structure. So at least by not going, he can embarrass South Africa and he can take some shots at China and Russia. So what I'm going to argue is that there's no reason for Rubio to go to South Africa, to go to the G20, because America has another agenda. I'm not saying America's bad. I'm saying that it makes logical sense. America's a white supremacist nation. They have no business worrying about equity and things like that. So Rubio is doing a good job. And I want to tell the American voters, Rubio, and here's what I'm saying, American voters, Rubio is not letting you down. He's doing what you are, because America is an anti-black, anti-African, anti-equity country. Good job, Rubio. I'm serious. All Americans, I'm not being sarcastic. Your government is promising you what you offered them. What do you think?
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who will not be attending the G20 foreign ministers meeting in South Africa. Why is he not doing this? He has cited anti-American policies by the host nation. And that's basically the crux of our discussion this evening. Mustafa, you're welcome to the show.
Okay, let me ask you, because I think he was so vague with that statement. He said that he's not going to the G20, which is in South Africa, because the G20, and probably he meant South Africa specifically, but also the G20, because we know China and Russia belong to G20. So, but he said that because they are anti-American, that they have anti-American policies and views, so there's no point for him to come. I'll ask you a question. What does he mean by anti? What is it specifically that he thinks is anti-American about South Africa or G20? I'm not being sarcastic. I'm actually being real. I'm just trying to get down to the bottom of what do you think he's talking about before I say I think it is.
I think Marco Rubio is defending national policy. And right now, the national policy, according to Trump, is America first. So he has criticized the agenda for promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also climate initiatives that promote a greener, more sustainable environment, much against what Trump wants to drive. Trump is looking at traditional energy sources like fossils, because he sees the vision behind climate initiatives as going to affect a lot of Americans. They're going to lose their jobs and stuff. So basically, Rubio is saying whatever it is they're discussing is against national interest. It's against national interest.
So here's the first thing. So you're absolutely right. But let me attack Rubio's first point. He believes in old school energy. But let's keep it real. China and Russia also believe in that. They're digging under the ground. They're going for coal. So that excuse that he's saying that he doesn't care about climate. China doesn't care about climate either, and Russia doesn't. But he's using that as an excuse because he has some other issues. You see, we're trying to get down to what his real issue is. Because we know that China and America bring the most pollution. So we know that that's not really the real reason. Now let's get to the second reason, second thing that you brought up. So you said that so what were the three main? You mentioned that it has to do with.
I said America, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh, equity. So let's go to equity. I think equity is getting closer to it. So South Africa is talking about equity and inclusion. So they're taking land from white people. Supposedly, that's his argument, that South Africa is taking land from white people to address inequity. So, and also we know that in America, African Americans have nothing in our cities.
Yeah, sure.
Some do. I have money, but I don't live in the black neighborhood. I have money and I'm doing well. I'm one of the few people. When you look at black neighborhoods, we have black people who are doing well. But when you look at our black cities, Chicago, Baltimore, Richmond, Virginia, Atlanta, the black cities are fucked up.
Yeah.
Because there's no helping and there's no addressing those issues. And Trump has now, and I'm wearing the Trump hat. I'm still going to support him, but I'm going to tell the truth about Trump. Trump has said he's going to get rid of equity. So he's getting rid of equity in America. And Rubio has said it from his mouth. He said that we are against fossil fuels. Then he said he said to be anti-American, as far as I'm concerned, to be anti-American is to be for equity. So he's saying that America is not for equity. He's telling us who he is. Trump, by association, is telling us who he is.
Yes.
Elon Musk, I don't know if he's against equity, but he's against uh, going against white supremacy, and he has a beef with South Africa because
Yeah,
of the so-called land. They're saying that land is being taken from white people and they're being killed. Over exaggerated. White South African farmers are murdered, but the level at which they are murdered is nowhere near the level at which blacks in South Africa are killing themselves.
yeah, absolutely. That's
It's rare. It's very rare for a white farmer to be killed in South Africa, but as soon as it happens, it comes on the news. So now what I'm saying is that Rubio, by saying he doesn't care about energy, and because he knows China, Russia, none of these guys care about energy. They want oil and coal. They want batteries. They want to dig under the earth in South Africa. They want to dig under the earth in Congo. None of these countries cares about the environment. So that's the lie. And I think that the real reason Rubio is not going there is because Elon Musk is the de facto co-president. I'll call him co-president of America, co-president with Trump and somebody else, and maybe JD Vance, who's an alt-right guy. So what
yeah,
I'm saying is that that's the real reason. And also, there's no need for Rubio to go there. There's no reason for him to go to the G20. It's not going to change anything with the geopolitical structure. So at least by
sure,
not going,
absolutely.
he can embarrass South Africa and he can take some shots at China and Russia. So what I'm going to argue is that there's no reason for Rubio to go to South Africa, to go to the G20, because America has another agenda. I'm not saying America's bad. I'm saying that it makes logical sense. America's a white supremacist nation. They have
Of
no
course.
business worrying about equity and things like that. So Rubio is doing a good job. And I want to tell the
Yeah,
American
sure,
voters, Rubio,
sure.
and here's what I'm saying, American voters, Rubio is not letting you down. He's doing what you are, because America is an anti-black, anti-African, anti-equity country. Good job, Rubio. I'm serious. All Americans, I'm not being sarcastic. Your government is promising you what you offered them. What do you think? Rubio and these guys are mentioning that they don't want to go there, and that South Africa is against equity.
I hear, however, there will be a lower level representative of the
Oh
US,
yeah, they have somebody there.
but not
This
Rubio.
this is just,
They
it's
will
just
not,
meant to embarrass. It's like you said, it's just meant
yeah,
to embarrass. Yeah.
yes,
So give us your
it's meant
thoughts
to
on that. Yeah.
embarrass. It's meant to
Yeah.
embarrass,
Yeah.
yes. It's
Yeah.
meant to embarrass
It's
them.
just,
So,
what are your
and I
thoughts? Yeah.
feel, yeah, I feel the US needs to tread carefully also, because it could possibly isolate the US while others, the likes of EU, Russia, and China, continue to support South Africa. The US, I think, are forcing South Africa to the negotiating table on their own terms,
Oh, it's too
really.
late. South Africa is already part of BRICS. South Africa's done with the U.S.
Yeah.
America, it's too late. But go ahead, continue. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel that's their end game, and I feel, in my own opinion, if the US are able to get what they want, they'll just force South Africa into, because they're going to cut aid anyway. They've cut aid for some of these their Africa Growth and Opportunities Act that they
Yeah.
sponsor in South Africa. They pumped a lot of money in it, and because of this land issue that they are blaming the South African regime about, they are going to cut a significant amount of aid to South Africa. And I don't think South Africa can afford losing that kind of money. So the end game is to force them to do business at Trump's own terms. I think they're going to force them to negotiate at
Yeah.
Trump's.
So this gets to the next point. So this gets to the next point in which, let's face it, if the U.S. really puts sanctions on South Africa, so what they're going to do is they're not going to let them bring in their imports at a lower price. They're going to tariff it. But here's the thing: if Trump does that, which he may do, it's going to cause a minimal rise in the price of American goods, because America relies on labor from other countries. So they're relying on getting cheap goods from South Africa. When I say that South African goods are cheap, it doesn't mean that they're not good quality. It means that the cost of production is lower. So it will hurt America, but a little bit, because America has different sources. If South Africa doesn't give them what they want, Taiwan will, and Philippines and South Korea. Yeah, I think South Korea is the democratic part. So what will happen is that America can find other sources of cheap labor. They can get it from Mexico and other places, if not. But that's not South Africa's only revenue for exports. They can now alter their exports to Russia, to India. So to me, South Africa can survive it, but it's a game by Trump. But right now, a few businessmen in South Africa are panicking, because if they put sanctions, some businessmen will lose money and some South African laborers will lose money. So maybe South Africa will come to the table and negotiate with Trump. And this is what Trump is really doing, is to try to make them negotiate. And at the end of the day, both sides will make compromises. I don't know what Trump wants. Maybe he'll want South Africa to back off from its land expropriation bill, which I think they may do. They may actually do that. Or behind the scenes, they'll work out a private deal with South Africa in which they get something else they want. I don't know what they want from South Africa, but what do you think that might be?
Well, basically, this whole cutting of aid to South Africa does not affect South Africa alone. Some of the white farmers are going to be affected. In 2022, about $134 million worth of citrus and South African wine were exported, and so if this kind of aid is cut, the the agricultural guys in those kind of sectors are going to be affected. A chunk of their revenue is going to be eroded. So it's going to affect white farmers as well. So I feel the
but
end
here's my
game of
argument.
this.
So here's my argument. A lot of the white farms in South Africa are privately owned. Okay. So what I foresee happening is that whatever those white farmers, they own that land. As long as they own that land, they can still produce those goods and give it to American and everybody. So they'll fly around the sanctions because international companies will still privately accept things from China. Same thing with the Russian war with Ukraine. They banned Russia, but now in the black market, America and other countries are buying fuel from Russia. So my thing is that it's still a lie. They know what they're doing. What they're doing is they're trying to make South Africa feel afraid, but they think South Africans are dumb. Because what I'm
Yeah,
saying is that
but
America will never let the white South Africans suffer because they own
yeah,
land. They'll just tell us, let's do deals behind. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think much more of what
Oh,
really annoyed.
is Lorato trying to get in? Take a look. Is he trying to
No,
get in?
I'm trying to bring him in. His connection is bad. I brought him in.
Okay.
He's still trying to enter. So basically, what I'm
Okay.
saying is that what I was saying is that much of this thing is
No, you had
basically.
a point, but my point being, you're right. So your point is valid. I'm not attacking it. But what I'm saying is that for our viewers, they need to realize that when America says that white South Africans will suffer from sanctions, I'm saying it won't happen because they have their money invested in Australia and in
Oh,
white banks,
sure,
and
sure,
even
sure. They have their money secure.
white
Their money
banks
is secure.
support the white farms in South Africa are supported by white banks from Germany, America, Belgium, and Holland. So they will still be okay. But for TV, they're just trying to get the white people in South Africa to also try to overthrow the government because by making them feel afraid. But in reality, the white business owners in South Africa with their private land are in alliance with America and they will still bring products. Continue. I
Yes,
think part of this is a I
I
think
feel
part of this is a
Trump's.
propaganda war. I think all of this is a propaganda war
Oh
to
yeah,
try to force the black South Africans to get scared and to say our president
yes,
Ramaphosa is
yes.
going to take away money that America has given us. But I have a message for black South Africans. Tell Donald Trump, tell George Bush, tell Obama, tell every American, fuck you. Put sanctions on us, motherfucker, because we have Julius Malema and we're going to build our own resources.
Oh sure.
We don't want your fucking international event.
So
But if
you're
they don't say
absolutely
that,
right. You're absolutely
but if
right.
South Africa
The
doesn't take that
US,
turn and
the US
if South
doesn't
Africa
want.
doesn't become a socialist country, then they're at the whim of America. So right now, South Africa can't afford to say that because they haven't decided to become a true socialist country that's anti-corrupt and that's taking control of their own resources. What do you think of Falabi? Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mustafa. I think the US wants South Africa to be scared of them. And the reason is simple. The genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice and their military ties with Russia and China have upset the US. So it's like they're
Yeah.
trying to hit back at South Africa
Yeah. And I think it's
to get
more
them
importantly,
nervous.
it's upset Elon Musk. Yeah.
Yes, it's upset them.
Because
So
let me
I
tell
think
you,
they're
I
trying
think
to get
Trump.
back.
Let me be very quick. Then I'll go back to you, Falabi. Trump only wants to become president. He's a narcissist, but he realized he couldn't get reelected unless he had the money of the white supremacist and Elon Musk. So right now, Trump's presidency is hijacked. He's just basically he's happy that he got reelected, and but also under Trump, we're having trade wars and not real wars. So he's brought some peace. But in general, like you said, I think that what's happening is that Elon Musk and these guys have said, look, and also black South Africans are scared. They're like, "Oh, America's taking our resource is going to cut our funding." But I keep saying it, black South Africans, you should be cheering because now it means that if America leaves you, then you guys have to come together on the ground and bring a socialist revolution like Hani wanted and like Malema is aspiring to. I'm going to go to Afolabi quickly, then we'll go to Lerato. What are your thoughts, Afolabi? Yeah.
I agree with you, but in all of this, I feel there's a middle ground. If South
Africa, yeah, that's what Trump is looking for, a middle ground.
Exactly, the middle ground. I feel if South Africa can offer to adjust some of his land reform policies to reassure the investors and trade partners while maintaining his sovereignty, then there can
be. But
Afolabi,
you agree that by doing that, okay, which is what I think. I think that's because Trump is a negotiator. Trump will threaten you, then he'll make a compromise, but you make a compromise. So that means that South Africa will have to backtrack on its land expropriation, and that means that in a way Elon Musk wins.
Yes, in a way, and I feel they would do that because if this aid is taken away, it means that the government of South Africa loses popularity at home. So, and they won't want to risk that as well.
I agree. So I'm going to stop you there. So what that means is that South Africa's economy is not socialist yet. It's still crony capitalism. And as long as it's crony capitalism, they're going to have to make concessions to Trump. So my argument is that it's time for South Africa to get fully invested in socialism, or they have to do a deal with Trump. What do you think, Lerato?
Concessions at other people's cost. Yeah.
What do you think, Lerato?
Yeah. I think there's a few sort of like wheels that are moving all at the same time that are sort of affected by this one conversation around the relationship between the US and South Africa. And included is the issue of the DRC and all the resources that the US and the rest of the West are trying to access. And we have South Africa involved in that conflict, where, as we remember, a couple of weeks ago, a few soldiers, troops from South Africa, actually died in the conflict between the M23 and South Africa. So that, to me, when you look at the economics of it, because when you speak trade war, you are talking about economic wars.
Yeah.
These 13 soldiers are casualties of this economic war. So this is just like to set the stage in terms of how trade wars can actually have an impact on your life. And we are seeing that manifestation almost become apparent militarily.
Although I would say, Lerato, I'm going to cut in front of you real quickly. So Trump's argument would be that's not a trade war. That was South Africa agreeing to be part of the UN mission to stop a war. They would argue that it's not part of the trade. They would argue that it's not part of the trade war. Hold on, let me finish. It's not a trade war.
Yeah, but we can't argue against the economics.
Yeah, but it's not a trade war. This is more of territorial war under international law.
But let me finish my point.
But I'm just getting to that one point. This is not part of the trade war debate, but go on. Yeah, this is more a part of South Africa willingly sent troops under UN.
I'm including it as a thread in sort of like the entirety of.
Okay, so how is this thread connected to trade war? Because I don't think it's trade war. I think it's economics, but not trade war, because sanctions aren't involved in this issue. Yeah.
But what I am saying is that in that we are seeing some
but there has to be a logical connection. I don't see any. So I'm going to ask you, what's the logical connection?
Yeah. But I'm trying to drive my point towards this.
I know, but all I'm doing is I'm being rigorous because I don't see how the mention of trade war has anything to do with South Africans dying in Congo. It has nothing to do with trade war. It may have to do with trade, but not trade war, because trade war is sanctions. Continue. Sorry. Yeah.
But I'm saying this is one of the facts that where South Africa is implicated in some kind of conflict where the West is on the one side and South Africa is on the other side. Similar with the genocide case, similar to BRICS.
Okay, so very quickly, South Africa is on the side of the U.S. by helping them under UN to go and send troops there to do peacekeeping. It's not, they're not in opposition with the U.S. when it comes to that. Oh, yeah, continue.
Yeah, but Rwanda is Western backed, as we've seen, and these are
South Africa is Western backed. what's his name? Ramaphosa is on the board of companies from Britain which take South African things. So that's why I don't want to paint this as South Africa was acting out of.
I mean, we're seeing. I'm trying to paint a bigger picture here, man. Just like, you know.
Oh yeah, I know, but I'm just what I'm doing is I'm attacking
saying,
the logical narrative because the narrative is off right now. But go with the bigger picture. But there's a flawed narrative within the picture that you're painting. That's all I'm saying. Continue. Yeah.
No, it's just like all of these are part of this tapestry. Like I'm trying to
Okay,
explain
go ahead. I'm not going to say anything
in
else.
terms of how also the European Union. Yeah, the European Union has come out with regards to this G20 announcement that Marco Rubio has made, that they're going to stand with SA. So you do have elements of the West that are actually going against the grain in terms of
which has nothing to do with what's going on in the Congo,
Trump's
though. Go
narrative,
ahead.
or but I'm saying there's connections. It's like there's nothing.
I'll agree that there are connections, but those connections have
Palestine
to be articulated without using the word of trade war. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying this is what is leading. These are some of the aspects where South Africa is in this diplomatic situation that they have to navigate, supporting Palestine, being involved in this M23 situation, being part of BRICS. These are all parts of like a composite picture of what the diplomacy situation and foreign sort of relations that South Africa has to sort of move from, and all these little things contribute to this narrative of there being some kind of leading to this kind of a trade war, where also then sanctions that are coming from USAID also sort of affect some of the workforces in terms of healthcare practitioners and things like that, that now the government has to shift focus and look at how they can support those things either by themselves or according to alternative funders. And this entire thing, as we've seen, has started by AfriForum sort of lobbying the Republican Party and the American far-right media to sort of look at South Africa in a particular way. And strangely enough, now that there may be sanctions, economic sanctions, by removing South Africa from the Africa growth sort of trade situation with the US, we are seeing that actually the same farmers who are falsely claiming that their farms are being endangered are the people who are actually going to be directly implicated by these sanctions, because they are the people who've been trading the most with the US. So when you look at that capitalistic like overall picture, you also start to see then these details that actually have to relate closely with what we're discussing.
Thank you.
As part of
so here's the point.
Of the trade.
Here's the point I was making before you were on here. White South African farms that are doing well are funded by Belgian, Dutch, German, American, British companies. When the sanctions come, and this is what I told Afolabi before you got here, when the sanctions come, those companies will not be affected because their share capital comes from the West. They will still be okay. This is just a manipulative tool that America's making to put fear into the average white South African and the average black South African. You can bet your bottom's dollar that even when the U.S. puts sanctions on South Africa, those white farms will continue thriving because their capital comes from America. What do you have to say about that, Lorato?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know about those other.
No, what do you think intuitively, based on the logic of what I've said? Do you think that what I'm saying is correct or false? If you are investing in South African farms and you put sanctions on South Africa, you will still make sure that the white farms and stuff benefit because they're getting something from it. White farms in the Western Cape are owned by foreign countries, and they will not allow their investment to go wrong. What do you think of Lorato?
Yeah, but I mean, this is what we've seen with regards to how the Trump presidency uses these threats as bargaining
Oh, yeah,
chips.
you're right. It's a bargaining tool.
Or
So my argument
yeah,
is that they're
yeah.
threatening this thing, but they're not going to follow through with it. And even if they follow through with it, they'll only make sanctions on things that affect Black South Africans. That's what I'm saying. So
Well,
when
yeah,
these guys
I
come
mean
and say,
the
so when
current,
these guys come and
yeah,
say that U.S. sanctions will hurt white farmers, no, they won't, because anywhere in the world, white supremacy takes care of everybody in every country, even in countries that are
yeah.
enemies.
I think that the danger is that in what the U.S. has said so far, they haven't made that distinguishment between
Yeah, but it's our job as
who
analysts to
will
be able to call them
benefit.
out when they lie. So I'm saying they're lying.
Yeah,
White South African
yeah,
farmers are
yeah.
lying.
But
So,
if
and
you
that's the job of our show, is to find out the counter narrative. They are lying. And I'm asking you, do you really believe that that white
yeah,
South Africans will suffer if US puts sanctions on South Africa? Yes or no? Do you believe it?
what I'm saying is, if AGOA is affected as a trade agreement, then they will be affected because they are
And I'll
beneficiaries
even argue if
of.
whoever owns the farms, you can call them Boers, the Boers who own the farms that are very prosperous, they will not be affected. Now, maybe white South Africans who aren't part of the farming industry will be, because they will suffer just as much as blacks if South African industry goes down. But the farmers themselves will not, just like the farmers are lying when they say that there's a genocide going on with them, and America says there's. So we have to see when America is lying. America's lying when they say that a lot of white South Africans are
Yeah,
getting killed. Yeah.
I mean, I do not dispute the lies. I'm just saying about the facts and what we have on the data.
Yeah, but here's
That
the thing: we don't know all the
a
facts
huge,
because everything that we're going is from what people are saying. America has made a claim that white South Africans will suffer from the sanctions, and my argument is no, they won't, because their money is invested in Australia and their land is owned by Germans and Belgians and America, so they will still be okay. It's the same lie they give about Russia, that if you put sanctions on Russia, it's going to hurt the oil business around the world. No, because America is now buying it illegally from Russia off of the books. Same thing. America will take South African white produced products off the books and they won't mention it. That's my argument. What do you think, Falabi?
I feel
yeah, I think they will do that.
Yeah, and so to me, that's the point. That's the point of our show. We're not really worried about all these side effects. We want to get direct to the point and see to show how capitalism and white supremacy works. What are your thoughts, Falabi?
I think they are going to reinstate this aid stuff, the African Growth and Opportunities Act. I think they're going to reinstate it, but they're going to give conditions. Instead of outrightly revocating it, they're going to reinstate it and give conditions. Trump could offer South Africa a conditional renewal of the aid they're giving to them
Yes.
and tie them to specific policy changes or commitments, ensuring that
But
U.S.
let me ask you a question. What if South Africa refused to do it? Do you think that Trump would actually cut the aid totally and then white South Africa? I think Trump is calling South Africa's bluff, like in poker. What do you
Yeah,
think,
but
Falabi?
I don't think his plan is to take it off completely. The plan is to force them to the negotiating table,
Yes,
which I think is like
yeah,
an
and I
olive
agree with
branch.
you. And this goes back to where we started off. So what will happen is South Africa will negotiate, and they won't push forward on their land expropriation.
Yes,
That's what's
because
going to happen. And
South
then Trump will
Africa
be like, okay,
also
well,
Yeah,
South Africa
but
also weigh his options.
unfortunately,
yeah. Go ahead, Lorato. Go ahead.
Okay, go
Oh,
ahead.
I'll
yeah,
probably
no, no,
finish. So I'll probably finish your point, then Lorato can go. Go ahead,
Yeah, what I'm
Falabi.
saying is that South Africa must weigh its options carefully. Aligning too closely with China and EU may risk alienating the US. And if you yield completely to Trump's demands, you may be seen as a country without sovereignty. So I think a
Yeah.
strategic measured approach will be necessary to maintain
Yeah,
economic
and I agree. But you know me,
standards.
Lorato Falabi, I'm a pure leftist. So my argument is that South Africa, I know it's not going to happen, but because I'm a pure leftist, which is not rational. The pure leftism is, I won't say it's not rational, but it doesn't seem to work in the real world. My argument is that South Africa should say fuck you to all of them and rebuild the country and suffer so that they're no longer dependent on China or America. But the problem is that a lot of people will die if that
Yeah,
happens.
sure,
Yeah, I agree with you, Afolabi, actually. I agree with you. So what it means is that South Africa is not a sovereign country because it hasn't reached the level of socialism yet.
No,
What are your
it's
thoughts,
not.
Lorato? No, good point, Afolabi. I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't think the country has an option in terms of amending that part of the constitution. That part of the constitution was amended in order for it to align with the current
I agree. So the
democratic.
citizens have to rise up like the Bolsheviks and tear the country down and get rid of the ruling class.
That
That's
has
what
to
has to
align with
happen.
the current. with the current democratic
South Africa
era,
needs a Bolshevik
cause
revolution. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because this was an outdated clause in the Constitution from
but
1971.
South Africa is a corrupt country. So what they can do is they can just slow down the. So what they could do, if you were really strategic, you don't get rid of it, but you just slow down the process. That's all. Go ahead, Lorato. Yeah. Slowing down the process is the same thing as not following it. Go ahead. Yeah. And then if you slow down the process, it's not unconstitutional. Go ahead. Yeah.
But I'm saying that the new act is nothing different from what we see in terms of international law. It's in line with international law. If the US is willing to listen and read those aspects of it to see that it's in line. And actually,
I agree with you. See, Lorenzo, here's the thing. I think you're idealistic.
This is what we've seen the US do with regards to how they
everything you say, Lorenzo, but you're idealistic.
With Mexico.
What you're saying is obviously true. The US will ignore, they don't care about, white people don't care about the law. So we can't appeal to them with the law. We can't. We know you're right. The US, South Africa is following international law. I had this argument with some other people the other day. Let's stop talking about international law. It's a waste of time. Let's talk about strategy. Continue.
Yeah, but I'm just saying then from that strategic point of view, in terms of what is happening even within the social conversation within the country, is that we have to sort of forge ahead with this, and AfriForum as a lobbying body that is lobbying to foreign governments to sort of influence politics at home must be pointed out as
I agree. So here's my point.
Yeah, as a destabilizer.
So here's my point.
And they're reversing whatever it is that was set forth as like some kind of reconciliation project.
The US illegally invaded Iraq. Nobody did anything. Russia, actually, I'm a Russian fan. I'm a fan of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. They did it illegally. Why are we still talking about South Africa following international law? Why can't they be like the US and Russia, in which you follow your national interests? What do you say, Lorato?
Yeah, no, I think my argument is that this act is in line with what is our national interest, and by any means, we need to stick by it. If it means strategically slowing it down.
So what I would argue is we shouldn't stick. South Africa shouldn't stick because it's in international rules. They should stick to it because it's within their own interest, whether it's legal or not. That's what I'm arguing, because I am a realpolitik. You don't listen to other countries. You do what you have the power to do. America and Russia have the power to invade countries, and nobody does anything.
But both those things are true in this instance.
Yeah, but let's cancel out the part about international law because it's not valid or relevant. Because the powerful countries don't follow it. What's relevant, like Foucault said, is power, and that's what we want our discourse to be about. Continuing.
Yeah, but it is essentially a national interest issue that has been at the table since even before there was a democratic South Africa.
Okay, so I'll even argue with that. If they seize land from white people and stuff, and they still have a crony capitalist economy, how would that help the poor people in South Africa? I keep going back. There needs to be a Bolshevik socialist revolution in South Africa, which is not based on race. It's based on all land does not belong to private people. It belongs to the government. And anybody who's a South African citizen, whether they're black or white or colored, benefits from it. But at the same time, you can address inequality by pumping resources into those neighborhoods which are depressed. And the whites wouldn't even have to argue because there's enough money to power and equalize those resources to those people, and whites wouldn't suffer. But as long as South Africa is a capitalist country, not only South Africa, America, everywhere else, Nigeria, that means it's an anti-black country. So the problem is capitalism. What are your thoughts, Falabi? Yeah.
I agree with you, basically. And what I feel is that at the end of the day, there will be concessions on the side of South Africa. I think China will take advantage of this to strengthen its ties with South Africa and even the EU. But they will have to make concessions with America.
You're cynical, but you're realistic. So, and that's what's going to happen. But my point being is that shows you that no African country, including South Africa, is really sovereign, because it has to
I agree
compromise.
with you.
They
Of
have to
course, they have to
compromise.
make compromises.
Lorato, America, not America, Russia, China, America, they don't compromise. I mean, they